Welcome to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case.
And I'm Renata Kiss.
And tonight, in-person voting begins in multiple states.
Meanwhile, Israel ramps up its attacks against Hezbollah.
And the U.S. Navy prepares for war with China. Alrighty, well, we're just 6 weeks away out from the election, and early in-person voting is now underway in 3 states as we speak, as voters in Minnesota, South Carolina, and Virginia began casting their ballots on Friday. About a dozen more will follow suit by mid-October. Meanwhile, Americans who requested mail-in ballots should start checking their mailboxes sometime this week. It comes as early voting has become increasingly popular in recent years. According to new data from MIT's Election Data Science Lab, almost 70% of votes cast during the 2020 election were done either through mail-in ballots or early in-person voting, with COVID-19, of course, being a major factor in those election choices. That number then dropped down to 50% in the 2022 midterms, which, despite being lower than 2020, is still significantly higher than years past. Likewise, analysts do expect a large number of early voters this election cycle as well.
At the same time, Vice President Kamala Harris wants to persuade Trump to do another debate with her, despite turning down multiple opportunities in the past. Former President Trump responded to Harris at a rally in North Carolina yesterday, saying she missed her chance and now it's too late.
The problem with another debate is that it's just too late. Voting has already started. She's had her chance to do it with Fox. You know, Fox invited us on, and I waited and they turned it down, but now she wants to do a debate right before the election with CNN because she's losing badly.
Yet the vice president insists that Americans deserve another debate.
Join me on the debate stage. Let's have another debate. There's more to talk about, and the voters of America deserve to hear the conversations that I think we should be having on substance, on issues, on policies. What's your plan? What's my plan?
Fox News' Laura Ingraham responded on X saying, quote, "The fact that Kamala's team is pushing for a new debate is a sign of weakness, not strength. They obviously don't think they have the Electoral College."
You do have to wonder if her internal pollings are perhaps showing something different than what the public polls are showing. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, while Trump is saying no to a second debate, he's certainly not shying away from his rallies. The former president spoke in North Carolina, as Renata just said, on Saturday, where he made bold promises about both the border and the economy, both of which are, of course, winning issues for Trump, according to most polls.
Starting on day one, I will seal the border and stop this horrible migrant invasion that is destroying our country. We will carry out the largest deportation operation of criminals in American history. We will end inflation and make America affordable again, and we will get your energy bills cut in half within 12 months.
Meanwhile, Kamala Harris spoke in Georgia the day before, focusing on her winning issue, namely abortion. During her speech, she said Trump would sign a federal abortion ban if elected, despite Trump repeatedly saying the issue should be left up to the states.
If he is elected again, I am certain he will sign a national abortion ban, which would outlaw abortion in every single state. And he would create a national anti-abortion coordinator. Look at Project 2025. They just don't trust women. Well, we trust women. When Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedoms, as President of the United States, I will so proudly sign it into law.
And while Kamala Harris tries to win people over with her abortion agenda, a major business school openly rejected her economic plan for the country. Last week, Harris partnered with Oprah Winfrey to present her vision for America's future. And in one of her comments, she claimed that analysis from Wharton School of Business supported her economic plan. She claimed the school concluded that her plan would strengthen the economy while Trump's plan would weaken it. The school fired back saying, quote, "We did not find a positive impact on the the economy from her plan in any future year. They added that the Trump plan does increase GDP for a few years, but lowers by the end of the 10-year budget window. The report that Harris referenced predicted that the GDP under Trump would shrink by 0.4% in the next 10 years, while under Harris, the GDP would fall by 1.3% within that same time frame.
Elsewhere, still keeping with the election today, it does look like Trump's appeals to Christian voters are somewhat paying off. According to a new Lifeway poll, twice as many pastors plan to vote for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris, 50% of them signaling their support for Trump, compared to only 23% for Harris. However, it should be noted nearly a quarter of all Protestant pastors polled say they were either undecided or unwilling to name a candidate. Pentecostal, Baptist, and non-denominational pastors gave the greatest support to Trump. Methodists and Presbyterians, meanwhile, were the least supportive, with only 1 in 4 saying they would vote for the former president.
And this year might be the last time conservatives have the chance to vote for Trump. The 2024 presidential candidate told Full Measure's Cheryl Atkinson yesterday that he is not planning on running again should he lose in November. During rapid-fire questions, the 78-year-old candidate said he hoped his campaign would be successful in light of that reality.
If you're not successful this time, do you see yourself running again in 4 years?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think that will be it. I don't see that at all. I think that hopefully we're going to be successful.
According to NBC News, Kamala Harris has enjoyed a surge in positive ratings, while Trump's popularity has largely remained the same. Negative perceptions of Harris saw a rise from -18 to -15, while Trump remained the same at -10. And up next, Israel ramps up its attacks against Hezbollah. The details after this.
Hi, I'm Aisha. At first, I was debating whether or not I was really pregnant and took a test. While I was waiting, they talked to me about different pregnancy choices and different options and information that helped me be more educated. To confirm, I got an ultrasound of the pregnancy test, and it was for sure positive, and I got to hear and see my baby for the first time. Hearing the heartbeat made me cry, and it was certain that I was going to keep my baby forever.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partners today.
Welcome back to FISM News. I'm Renata Kiss. Well, let's continue our coverage looking into some updates on the war in the Middle East. FISM's Ian Patrick brings us those updates.
Tensions escalated between Israel and Hezbollah over the weekend as the two struck one another with different attacks. First on Friday, the IDF announced that it had taken out senior Hezbollah commander Ibrahim Akil following an airstrike on Beirut. Other senior leaders were eliminated in that strike as well. The announcement was made by IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari.
The IDF conducted a targeted strike in Beirut on senior terrorist Ibrahim Akil, the head of Hezbollah's operations and the commander of Hezbollah's elite Radwan forces. Ibrahim Akil and the Radwan commanders who were eliminated today were planning Hezbollah's Conquer the Galilee invasion plan into Israeli communities. These terrorists planned to do in northern Israel what Hamas did in southern Israel on October 7th. Invade Israeli homes and kill innocent people.
Hezbollah later confirmed Akil's death, referring to it as a treacherous Israeli assassination. And the Lebanese terror organization did confirm 15 other members were killed in that strike. Israel then decided to keep up the pressure with another set of airstrikes in southern Lebanon on Saturday. According to IDF announcements, the military struck around 290 targets, which reportedly included, quote, thousands of launcher barrels, alongside additional terrorist infrastructure in multiple areas in southern Lebanon. In retaliation, Hezbollah launched near 150 projectiles into Israel early on Sunday, as one Hezbollah leader declared an open-ended battle between the two nations. Later on in the evening, Hezbollah announced more specific attacks targeting military sites in northern Israel. Following that, the IDF reportedly discovered that Hezbollah was looking to fire again on Israel. So in another announcement posted to X, Daniel Hagari told the people of southern Lebanon to evacuate the area and allow the IDF to eliminate the threat.
There are dozens of Lebanese villages situated along approximately 80 kilometers of the border with Israel. For over 20 years, Hezbollah has deployed its arms inside homes and militarized civilian infrastructure. As a result, the Hezbollah terrorist organization has turned southern Lebanon into a battlefield. We advise civilians from Lebanese villages located in and next to buildings and areas used by Hezbollah for military purpose, such as those used to store weapons, to immediately move out of harm's way for their own safety. I want to repeat, move out of harm's way immediately. Hezbollah is endangering you and your families.
Since that announcement, Israel has renewed its targeted strikes on terrorist infrastructure in that region. It has attacked hundreds of targets so far. Reports suggest upwards of 300, with reports of almost 200 deaths as a result. Now, those numbers are preliminary, but reports do suggest that these strikes have become the deadliest barrage between Israel and Lebanon since their conflict in 2006. Prior to these recent strikes, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reassured Israelis that he was focused on changing what he called the security balance in their region. The goal of these attacks is to, quote, return the northern residents of Israel safely to their homes, according to Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. But the U.S. is less than thrilled with Israel's actions. U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told ABC's This Week that a wider conflict with Lebanon is what he said was not in Israel's best interest.
We don't believe that a military conflict, and we're saying this directly to our Israeli counterparts, George, we don't believe that escalating this military conflict is in their best interest. It's certainly not going to be in the best interest of all those people that Prime Minister Netanyahu says he wants to be able to send back home.
This is Ian Patrick reporting for FISM News.
Thanks for that report there, Ian. At the same time, those attacks on Hezbollah weren't the only operation carried out by the IDF over the weekend. Yesterday, Israeli forces raided Al Jazeera's offices in the West Bank, accusing the news outlet of incitement to and support of terrorism, saying it was the, quote, mouthpiece of Hamas and Hezbollah. It follows a similar raid on Al Jazeera's office in East Jerusalem back in May. During yesterday's raid, Israel seized dozens of computers and cameras and has since ordered the office to remain closed for 45 days. Earlier this year, an Israeli court found that there was a, quote, close connection between Al Jazeera and Hamas, saying that some Al Jazeera reporters in Gaza had become assistants and partners to the terror group, and even said that some of them had carried out terror attacks themselves. That's all according to the Times of Israel. Meanwhile, Al Jazeera denies being a threat to Israel's national security.
Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard arrested 12 people yesterday who the group accused of working with Israel. Their statement accused the so-called Zionist regime in the United States of seeking to spread the Gaza crisis to Iran with a series of actions planned against Iran's national security. Reportedly, all 12 people were arrested in 6 different provinces nationwide, although the Revolutionary Guard did not disclose their locations. The arrests come days after Israel blew up thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies connected to Lebanon's Hezbollah members, followed by multiple IDF strikes on southern Lebanon.
And turning our attention to the other war, namely the war in Ukraine, where dozens are now wounded in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv after 2 nights of Russian strikes. On Saturday, Russia bombarded a high-rise apartment building and wounded 21 people following a similar overnight attack on Friday when airstrikes hit 3 neighborhoods, also wounding 15 other people. Ukrainian officials say that guided aerial glide bombs were used in both of those attacks. What those are their converted Soviet-era dumb bombs, making for a rather cheap and frankly destructive weapon. Russia apparently used 900 of them against Ukraine just last week, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He's currently in the U.S. right now, asking for permission from the U.S. to strike inside Russia with American-made weapons and American-provided weapons, more specifically, which he says is key to ending the war.
And the wars don't seem to come to an end anytime soon. The Naval Institute published a new report detailing the Navy's vision for warfare with a target date of 2027. Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Lisa Franchetti announced her Project 33 plan last week, which she says is an accelerated model for readiness in the next 3 years. Some of the targets include scaling robotic, autonomous systems to integrate more platforms at speed, creating command centers the fleets need to win on a distributed battlefield, recruiting and retaining Navy forces, and training for combat, both in the physical and virtual world. Franchetti concluded, quote, Project 33 sets new targets, but we do not need new levers to reach them. We will deliver the results using the tools and resources we have to gain ground without losing speed. The news comes as Russia and China have been conducting naval exercises in the Indo-Pacific region. And we have plenty more news coming up next, but first, let's go to a moment in history.
Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. Well, in the 2,000-year history of the church, there are many men and women who stood tall as dynamic, titanic figures of the church. These were men and women who were handpicked by God Himself to share and spread the hope of the gospel to the ends of the earth. Now, in this episode, I'd like to take you back to the ancient church period and explore a man who many theologians agree, outside of Jesus Christ and the apostles, is perhaps the single most important figure in the history of the church. His theological exploration was foundational in helping Christians grasp the beauty of God's grace, and his reach is felt by Protestants, Catholics, and just about every denomination in between. He is Augustine of Hippo, known in church history as Augustine the Great. Now, Augustine is complicated partially because of his theological heritage. Was he Protestant, or was he Catholic, or was he something else? Of course, these distinctions wouldn't come about for another 1,000 years or so, but both camps actually claim him as their own. Medieval Catholics drew heavily from Augustine, and in fact, one of the chief orders of the Roman Catholic Church is the Augustinian order, named after Augustine himself. On the other hand, John Calvin, one of the chief leaders of the 16th century Protestant Reformation, was once quoted as saying this: Augustine is wholly ours, meaning wholly belonging to the Reformation. Well, either way, Augustine was born in 354 AD, right around the time that Christianity was beginning to gain steam under its new status in the Roman Empire as a legal faith. Now, Augustine was raised with Christian roots. His mother, Monica, would allegedly pray for his soul almost every day, incessantly. But as a young man, Augustine cared little about the things of God. In fact, he shared one account of his early life where he and his friends went to a local farmer's orchard and stole fruit, not to eat, not because it was pleasing to the eye, but simply for the thrill of it. He engaged in sin because it kept him coming back, and Augustine was also notorious in his early life for engaging in womanizing and debauchery. But one day, as he pondered his wayward actions, he allegedly heard a miraculous voice speak to him and say, "Take up and read." So Augustine professed faith in Jesus Christ when he took up and read Romans 13 through 14, in which the Apostle Paul says this, "Let us walk properly as in the day, not in revelry and drunkenness, not in lewdness and lust, not in strife and envy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to fulfill its lusts." And so it is here that we see the rise of the man whom historians call the most influential Christian theologian since the apostles. Augustine would become a passionate defender of the faith as the Bishop of Hippo in North Africa in 395 AD. That's when he took his post. During this time, he would explore and develop the doctrines of the New Testament, some of which being the utter sinfulness of man, the perfect grace of Christ, and God's sovereignty over all mankind. Now, he would do battle ferociously against the heretic Pelagius, who argued against the doctrine of original sin and taught that man was good enough to get to God on his own. Now, the great Augustine also wrote numerous theological dissertations, including the Confessions and the City of God. He died in the year 430 AD, having faithfully served his God and Savior, and his life can be summarized in perhaps his most famous quote, in which he said this, "O Lord, thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in thee." Thanks so much for joining me once again for a moment in history.
Do you want to invest in biblically responsible stocks? Financial Issues can help. For only $132 per year, our team of experts will help you make wise decisions with your money and guide you to successful investments that will not dishonor God. You'll also have access to our Portfolio Tracker tool, which will help you keep an eye on your asset allocations. And our Buys and Sells page, which will give you valuable information about biblically responsible stocks. Being a Financial Issues partner is the best way to invest in accordance with biblical values. Make the most of your money by becoming a partner today. Sign up at financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
When I took the test, I knew that I had other options. I was really scared. I know that it's really easy to get an abortion in New York. I've been down the other road before, and it really was a negative experience for me. And it felt like I did it because it made things easier for my partner at the time. And this time I thought, I think I want a different story. I'm just really scared. And she said, we'll take it a page at a time. It felt scary, but it felt like a good thing. I'm gonna have to, if I have this baby, I'm gonna have to do it alone, and that's gonna be really challenging. But I wanted to do it. But I knew that I needed help, and to get around people that would help me, not people who would say, this is a problem that we can make go away. More like, this is awesome, and we can help you make it more awesome.
Hey there, and welcome back to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case. We're going to kick off this segment in New York, where federal authorities searched the home of interim NYPD Commissioner Thomas Donlan on Friday, just over a week since he took over the job. Sources tell the New York Post that authorities are looking into whether he took classified documents from his time when he was working with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security. It comes as Donlan's own predecessor, namely Edward Cabin, resigned earlier this month amid his own federal corruption probe targeting Mayor Eric Adams' inner circle. The search warrant against Donlan, however, is not believed to be connected to that larger investigation.
Meanwhile, police in Birmingham, Alabama believe that a murder-for-hire plot led to a mass killing at a popular nightclub on Saturday. 4 people were killed and 17 others injured after multiple shooters opened fire outside a club. 5 victims remain hospitalized as of this morning. The killers fled the scene in a car and remain at large. Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin said this morning that no murderer should feel safe in the community.
As a community, we cannot give safe harbor or shelter to people who want to just simply kill people. We can't give them cover. They should not feel safe in our community. They should not feel safe anywhere.
He added that the FBI and Crime Stoppers offers a combined $100,000 in reward for anyone who can provide credible information on suspects that can lead to a conviction.
And so you've heard it here from two of our partners. You can receive up to $100,000 if you have credible information that leads to one, an arrest, and the other, an actual conviction.
Very troubling news there. Hopefully they get to the bottom of that very soon, bring him to justice. Meanwhile, it looks like teachers have their work cut out for them this fall, as last year's grades, frankly, have a lot to be desired. According to Washington State's latest K-12 report card, only 50% of the state's public schools are considered at grade level in English. This would be the public school students, and less than half of them are on track in math and in science. Meanwhile, in Illinois, a recent study from the University of Illinois System found this problem to be happening much larger across the country, as only about 1/4 of all public school students are back to pre-pandemic performance levels in English language arts, while even fewer have returned to pre-pandemic levels in math. That problem's compounded even more in the state of Illinois by the fact that Chicago teachers are actually being told to give passing grades to specifically migrant students, regardless of their actual performances in class. Teachers told a local radio station, quote, they were instructed by school administrators to give their migrant students a 70% in every subject and pass them on to the next grade. They said this was even the case when those students, in their words, displayed severe academic deficiencies. Now, listen, I can sympathize with struggling in math, but those grades are just abysmal on the whole, and really just show that we have so much to do to get past the problems we've caused with the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns.
Absolutely. And this is such a disservice to the struggling students because they won't be able to succeed in the long run after that. So it's one big mess.
Unfortunately.
All right, well, Tennessee is gearing up to be a hotspot for the culture war. A federal judge on Friday temporarily blocked a state law that would prohibit adults from helping minors obtain abortions without parental approval. This includes intentionally recruiting, harboring, or transporting a pregnant minor within the state. The judge ruled that the law may violate freedom of speech, pointing to the legislation's alleged vague wording when it comes to the definition of recruiting minors. A similar abortion trafficking law in Idaho has also been put on hold for litigation. Meanwhile, Tennessee is preparing to defend its ban on puberty blockers for minors before the Supreme Court. Now, this comes after the U.S. Justice Department asked justices to intervene. Arguments could take place as soon as December, and the case may impact lower court challenges to similar laws in 24 states. So we'll just have to wait and see how that all ends. All right, well, that's our program for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we would like to remind you that FISM News is airing its final show this Friday, September 27th.
That's right. We'll still air our regular show all this week, and we do have a very special program to say goodbye on our last day. That would be this Friday.
I wanted to thank you for all your continuing support for the show, and we ask that you would continue supporting financial issues.
That's right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.